Hey everybody! I finally figured out what video to make in June. Charl, why didn't you have this out last weekend when it was first coming out? I hear you say. And well, I very rarely get advanced access to games for reviews or video content, and I also prefer to pay for my own games as it makes me less likely to be lenient on negative aspects of a game since I've got my own money invested. After some things I've said about Command & Conquer Rivals and other Command & Conquer games, I'd also seriously doubt if EA would ever do anything nice for me ever. Regardless, Electronic Arts has positioned Command & Conquer Remastered as the comeback of the franchise, and as something of an apology letter to the fanbase. All the press leading up to the game has been really sincere, showing remastered assets, bringing back folks like Joe Kukin and Frank Klepacki for press, as well as bringing on Petroglyph, who is comprised mostly of ex-Westwood developers who worked on the original games. They also seem to be doing almost no meddling to the game itself. So now the question becomes not just, well, how is the game, but also, has EA redeemed itself, and should we be excited for new Command & Conquer content? And I gotta say, at least for the first part, it's pretty good. You can tell a lot of love went into remastering the first two Command & Conquer games, and for $20 you get a lot of stuff. So let's talk about that new, refreshed look that puts the master into this remaster. The new sprites look awesome, and they look good even when it's zoomed way in or way out. Even with me using a mod that lets me zoom in and out much more than the devs originally intended, to levels that rival Petroglyph's own Star Wars Empire at War's battlefield view, if any of you remember that. The animations also look extra smooth, and this game runs very well at high resolutions and frame rates. Speaking of which, it'd be a crime if I didn't mention the old installer feature is back with a vengeance. When you first boot up the game, you first boot it up and whatever title plays a modified version of the old install screen where it detects your optimal settings and drivers before upgrading your Command & Conquer game to the new standard. Just to make things extra super cool, when you start the campaign, it'll be in the classic graphics, and then Eva will prompt you to activate your upgrades by pressing the spacebar, which really sells how much work they've done in updating everything about the game. And if for some reason you want to play with the old style graphics, just press the spacebar again and it'll switch right back to classic graphics. You can switch back and forth as much as you want and as fast as you can press the spacebar without any worry. The controls are updated too to reflect the modern stylings of RTS game controls. It won't start out like this though, but a quick trip to the options menu will let you switch over from classic controls to modern with just one click. You can also tweak it to have a little bit of both if you really want, and there is the option to entirely rebind all your key controls as you see fit. There's hotkeys now, by the way. My only gripe is more of a personal preference, and that I prefer WASD to arrow keys for scrolling on the map, and then I have all my hotkeys set one key away from WAS, but that's why we've got key rebinds and custom bindings, which again, thank you, Petroglyph. Unfortunately, the one thing they had trouble remastering was all the classic FMV videos that play between missions. If I had to guess, I'm gonna say this is because they either recorded it on a digital device that was contemporary at the time, or on very low quality film, as the whole point of FMV cutscenes was that it was cheaper and more efficient to hire actors and make green screen sets than it was to render full 3D cutscenes. So it's no surprise that back in the day, these weren't exactly shot on 70mm film. You can tell that some of the touch-up work has been done where it was possible, but most of this is just blatantly upscaled from 320 by 200 resolution, and it really shows in some places. As a point of reference, this particular footage was captured on OBS in 1080p, super sampled to 4K through NVIDIA's GTX Blackmagic. At least by the look of things and the special features in-game, they were able to get a hold of all the masters for the sake of remastering them, but even with those, there wasn't exactly much they could do. And best of all for the updates, we've got the tunes. Not only did Frank Klepacki re-record and remaster all the original songs from the game, but there are also now high-quality versions of the original songs, plus a few extras in there too. I can't stress enough how great the soundtrack for this game is. You can really hear the tones of the guitar, bass, and drums come through in each of the tracks, and I'm a sucker for a good bass pop. You can make your own playlists from anything in the collective soundtrack too, and there's even little achievements for it in both games. Crap, this game is practically worth the price of admission for the music alone, since last I checked, none of this is on Spotify or other streaming services yet. So, what about the content of the games themselves? Well, just like the devs said multiple times before, they've recreated the game's content to a fault, and that much is true. Aside from the new looks and optimal modernized control scheme, both games play the same as they did 25 years ago. warts and all. They didn't even change things that it's clear were not intended the first time around in the name of authenticity, even if it means that Red Alert has a much higher quality of life than Tiberian Dawn does. Here are a few examples if you can pick up what I'm laying down about this authenticity. For one, Petroglyph opted not to tweak Tiberian Dawn's commando in order to fix a timer on C4 charges. You've got about a 50-50 chance that your commando isn't going to get clear of their blast in time, and they'll take damage in the process of destroying buildings you need to destroy for a mission. This led to a fair amount of reloads on my end during earlier missions while I was still relearning the do's and don'ts of non-base building missions in Tiberian Dawn. You can also tell this was something that wasn't exactly intended in the first place, as it's fixed in both the original and remastered versions of Red Alert, along with a few other things. But when they said they were going to remaster the games as faithfully as possible, they meant it. There's also the AI, which is still its same old self from 25 years ago in Tiberian Dawn, and it's a little bit better in Red Alert, but units easily get confused and lost when moving to long distances. Harvesters will get tripped up sometimes when you have more of them than you do refineries, and sometimes they'll all just sit there and do nothing in front of empty refineries rather than drop off their payload. The worst of these is that on normal and above, the enemy AI will rebuild faster than you can take out buildings unless you want to do a suicide charge and take out their construction hard, and then hope you've got enough resources left to defend against the inevitable counterattack. Well, why not starve them out for Tiberium, I hear you ask? Well, that's because I learned the hard way that in Tiberian Dawn and possibly Red Alert as well, AI doesn't actually mine resources, it just goes through the motions. I figured this out on the Orca demonstration mission when I wasn't able to fully beat down the enemy AI's nod defenses fast enough before they would rebuild all their turrets. Since I didn't have enough orcas or tanks to successfully do a suicide charge on their construction yard, I decided I'd use my better map control to starve out the enemy AI by using my forces to repeatedly kill their harvesters away from base before they could return with the Tiberium they needed to rebuild their units and defensive structures. No dice. I successfully took out harvester after harvester for an hour straight, effectively denying the enemy AI of any resources. However, they kept rebuilding and throwing more troops at me to no avail, and I was stalemated with the AI for nearly 2 hours before I finished that mission. I eventually noticed that when the harvesters came out, sometimes they would start doing their collecting animations at nothing in particular, nowhere near any Tiberium deposits, and after seeing that a couple more times, it dawned on me that the AI doesn't actually need to mine, and I had blown over an hour trying a strategy that simply didn't work based on the AI's limitations. After begrudgingly doing that suicide charge on the con yard and mopping up the rest of the base over another half an hour, I subsequently set the difficulty to casual for the rest of the game, because that's what I am. And I've also only got so much hard drive space, for footage, and it's a lot easier to edit this video with 20 hours of footage available to me than it is with, say, 100 plus hours of footage with both sets of footage containing the exact same amount of information I want to convey. And subsequently, once I had things lowered down to casual play, I rarely had a mission take more than 20 minutes, and as I understand it, there's also a big leap between normal and hard, so I guess just AI difficulties are not what we remember them to be. We'll talk about this more and fixes for it later in the video though. Lastly, while a lot of stuff is indeed very much improved upon in Red Alert, it's still annoying that you aren't given a prompt to load a save when you fail a mission in either game, and must either restart the mission entirely waiting for everything to reload, or quit to the main menu before menuing through and loading a save. I ended up doing this a lot in Red Alert thanks to not being able to take out attack dogs in time, because while Tanya, your commando in Red Alert, can take out the attack dogs as fast as you can click, if left to her own devices, the AI will almost always go down to the doggies, which results in an instant fail state. I eventually wised up and remembered that to get through some of these trickier parts, you turn your game speed way down so the dogs move extra slow, and you'll be able to take them out as fast as you can click and get through the areas pretty handily. Beyond those few warts though, the game is essentially a smoother version of the original experience that made us fall in love with Command & Conquer in the first place. The game runs very well, and only very rarely chugs for just a moment in later levels against the AI when we both were producing crap loads of units and just going at it, and that might have been because I was using that one mod to zoom way out so I can watch it all happen at once. There were no crashes to speak of when playing this game, but towards the end of the game, the cutscenes kept on minimizing for some reason, but I think that might have been another program on my PC's doing. Now, as for game content, both games are good, but remember that Red Alert is an expandalone to Command & Conquer Tiberian Dawn instead of a full-blown sequel, and therefore time that would have been spent doing major engine engine upgrades or doing things that will require a full-blown sequel or expansion were instead spent making entirely new mechanics that fit within what they could possibly do with the engine at the time, such as adding exploding barrels, sniper units, and a naval system that totally wasn't Westwood looking at the naval system put into Warcraft 2 and going, hey, we could probably do that too. And for those of you who haven't played both games, the naval systems in Command & Conquer Red Alert and Warcraft 2 are functionally identical, save for in Warcraft 2 they added the resource of oil to manage. Red Alert also has more missions to it because while both games got console exclusive missions added back in, Red Alert has 2 expansions to Tiberian Dawn's 1, so there's simply more content to be had. Regardless of which one you prefer though, you still get both of them, and there's enough single player content to last you quite a while. I'm a little over 20 hours in right now, and I'm not quite done with all the major story missions yet, and I haven't even touched the oodles of expansion missions, custom maps, the map editor, and modded scenarios like tower defense or even the multiplayer, because there's just so much stuff. Everything you've liked about the original games is here, and then some. And it's all been modernized and brought into the hellhole that is the 21st century, and there is a lot of it to bring. Alrighty folks, you know what time it is. Let's do this week's anti-sponsor. And today, as always, we reject crappy or ethically questionable sponsorship deals in the name of Kane. And because it's just not a good thing to do. For those of you that are new to this channel, I run a Patreon, which I choose to do instead of taking money from the usual suspects who will throw money at anything and anyone, willing to lie through their teeth about this great new game they've totally been playing in this week's anti-sponsor. Today, we get one that comes from an email titled Earthbound plus Red Dead Redemption? And I'm pretty clear that these guys who sent me this email have never bothered to look at my channel or videos and likely bought my freely available contact email plus many others from a bot service that collects YouTubers' emails and basic analytics. This email opens with what's clearly a boilerplate message that asks me if I want a key for their game. And I'm sure the game itself is fine, but the issue here lies with how, despite the game looking like it's likely decently made and based on the Steam reviews it's well liked by those that play it, it's that these PR guys that the developer hired are clearly blowing the developer's money on poorly researched, scattershot tactics at finding a media partner, where it's likely that the most cursory amount of searching around using keywords on YouTube would yield them a proper shortlist of compatible content creators. Most of the time, these PR campaign managers can be easily finagled into doing a paid video of some sort, which, while sure, I might be able to get $100 or so, like a couple $100 out of like little indie games like this through their PR companies, that's likely a big fat chunk of the indie dev's budget, which went to a video on a channel whose audience probably isn't very interested in the game. But these PR guys who send out scattershot emails like this one on behalf of the developer don't care because they've technically done their job. I choose to stay the hell away from this and the many, many others like it that I get through the help of patreon.com/charlatanwonder. This Patreon not only helps me do stuff that I like to do, but also gets me the cash I need to buy various games and cover stuff like my Adobe subscription. So if you like what you see here and hate YouTubers being forced to shill for predatory mobile games, please consider supporting this channel over at patreon.com/charlatanwonder. And now, back to our feature presentation. So as I'm sure you have all seen from the promo content on this remaster, there is a lot of content in this game. Pretty much every mission unlocks something extra for you to ogle at between replaying the campaign, and it all comes with extra tidbits of information. Before this game, I had no idea that not only did Frank Klepacki do the game's music, but he was also one of the FMV actors in some of the scenes for Tiberian Dawn. Most of the behind the scenes clips are essentially cinematics where they were still on the green screen with whatever extra little bits were caught while the cameras were still rolling between takes. But there's some stuff behind the scenes that's genuinely interesting content, and there's a whole lot of stuff here in general. It's not just the main stories that unlock stuff too, but playing through expansion content and what have you will unlock more things, and you can also replay all the cinematics from the missions at the select menu once you've played through them the first time around. And if all the director's cut stuff wasn't enough, there's also the full-blown map editor to rival that of StarCraft's. I haven't spent too much time in it as it's not really my thing to like actually make maps, but there's already a whole lot of really cool maps on offer in the Steam Workshop, and it's hardly even been a week. When I was little, I used to always mess around in StarCraft's map editor despite having no idea what I was doing, and now as an adult I can do that with Command & Conquer too. I really like the concept of map editors in general since it's a gateway to proper modding, and including a decent map editor in the game is a respectful gesture from the devs to the players that it's totally cool for them to play with their toys and see what they can come up with in their own time. I have to admit, again, I am not very good at making maps, but it's always fun to play around with triggers and events and what I can do as terrains with the assets. And then there is the modding scene, with a full-blown Steam Workshop support on day one of release. I cannot stress how much that makes me happy. There's already a few quality of life staples on the workshop that I've installed, such as the previously mentioned extra zoom functionality, a mod allowing you to build an extra tile out from your nearest building for better base construction, and better wall building so you don't have to build your walls up one square at a time. There's also a whole lot of maps and already a few rebalancing options for difficulty settings, and I just checked a second ago while getting distracted from writing this, and it looks like there's a newly minted mod that fixes the AI pathing along with scalable Tiberium growth rate rally points called the CFE patch, which also presently has a good number of quality of life features planned in addition to what's already in it. To be fair, a lot of these look like they might have been rolled over from the CNCnet days, but if this is what we have in hardly a week, I am super excited for the difficulty rebalance we're probably going to get within 6 months that's going to allow me to have a choice between epic endless stalemate and games so easy it takes me sometimes 5 minutes to complete a mission. Mods can add years to a game's shelf life. Heck, this YouTube channel, even before BioShock, started out as me covering mod content for Torchlight 2, and I am so happy that the team behind this remaster in EA are going through with it full speed for Command & Conquer. So between the amazing sprite work, remastered music, all the extra features, mods, and all the other little details like the redone installation screens, it's clear that someone really cared about this project and made sure that the team was comprised of people who knew their stuff and cared about the subject matter. Bringing Klepacki back alone was a nice enough gesture, as for those of you that don't remember, the last time Klepacki worked on a CNC game was Red Alert 3, where he only ended up having 3 of the songs he wrote being put into the final game, and the rest ended up becoming the basis for one of his first solo albums. Now he's not only remastered, but entirely remade the entire discography for the first games and then some. Maybe it wasn't the executives who have a history of meddling in the affair of CNC to everyone's detriment, but somebody high up had enough sense to know that a remaster like this needed love, not focus groups. So does this absolve Electronic Arts of all the meddling they did to the series after they acquired Westwood and subsequently ran Command & Conquer into the ground? Well, not entirely, but it's a step in the right direction. CNC Remastered was made well enough that I now really want to see them redo Tiberian Sun, my favorite game of the Westwood series, and second only to Kane's Wrath. Then maybe they could redo Red Alert 2, because that game also had awesome sprite work and stands to have a nice remaster done to it. At the very least, EA has shown that they can be trusted to leave their classic catalog in the hands of people that know what they're doing, and to give those people enough freedom to make something that feels like how we remember playing Command & Conquer for the first time back in the day. This isn't a clean slate for EA, but it's a start at possibly what might be a new, better relationship with them. So, should you buy this? Well, I'd be surprised if you haven't already made up your mind before even clicking on this video, but if you're still on the fence, I'd say go for it, and this game gets my full recommendation. If you're a fan of the series, I'd say go for it based on the quality of the music alone. If you're a stranger to the series but like RTS games, I'd say that the quality of life added in the remaster makes this the best way to experience Tiberian Dawn and Red Alert for the first time. As for everyone else, well, it's a well put together experience that you could do a lot worse for $20, because there's at least 30 hours of single player content on here alone. As a point of reference, the StarCraft remaster costs $15 unless you want Carbot's Cartoon Pack for another $10, and in that you get the original game plus Brood War with remastered graphics, a map editor, and high quality audio. In CNC Remastered, you get the first 2 games, which is about the same as StarCraft plus Brood War content wise, plus all the expansion missions, remastered audio plus redone versions of the original songs, and the ability to make your own playlist for each session, easy access to all the cinematics, plus behind the scenes stuff, access to the Steam Workshop, and a designated map editor, which to be fair, StarCraft's got one of those too. And with the Workshop, love it or hate it, that is one of the best modding platforms out there, thanks to its integration with the game's launch platform. And also, you get Kane. you don't get Kane in StarCraft. So for 20 bucks, I think that the extra 5 is well warranted if you're a fan of classic RTS games. Heck, geez, for the price of like well less than a AAA game, you can get both of these remasters. In closing, I personally enjoyed CNC Remastered quite a bit, and I think that $20 is well worth the price of admission. It's a shame about the FMV cinematics, but there's only so much that even the best can do with what they're given. And now all I can think about is a Tiberian Sun remaster, and I'm really hoping I don't have to wait for the 25th anniversary on that one. Otherwise, we're not going to get it until 2024, and at this rate, I don't know if Civilization is going to make it to that year based on how things are going. Okay, thanks for listening, everyone. That's gonna do her for today. And an extra special $10 patron shout out to Elisanera, Jacob Maria, Dead Negator, Karlski, Chili Moon Buns, OMG Ponies, Nick Fluffers, and French Toast. And hello and welcome to new patrons, Zlintel and Paul. It's great to have you on. Last minute addendum, I just recently got my hands on a copy of Gloomwood, the immersive sim made by one Taffer King, which is coming out very soon. So I don't know if I'll have that out by June because I really need to get working on the Halloween in July, but I'd love to cover that. But again, it's going to take time. I'm not going to like just crap out of first impressions on it. Immersive sims deserve better than that. I've got my special Halloween in July event coming up next month, which admittedly I'm a little behind the 8 ball now, but I wasn't gonna pass up making a video about Command & Conquer Remastered. Be sure to subscribe if you aren't already so that you can see all the good spooks as they come out, such as Fear, Amnesia, Outlast, and Penumbra next month, and maybe something more if I can slurp up enough caffeine to go from ruined sleep schedule to no sleep schedule. Please consider supporting my Patreon if you're able right now, as Patreon allows me not only to tell crappy sponsors to get out of my site, but also allows me to speak my mind freely on whatever games and topics I like without fear of losing ad revenue or some PR guy coming up telling me that, could you shy away from that? That's not brand friendly. When it's my brand they want. Also, don't forget to stop by the Discord where all are welcome, and we're doing multiplayer games on Saturday, which is today if you're watching this when it comes out. We're gonna try and do Gotham City Imposters this Saturday because apparently it still exists and the servers are up. In the meantime, stay safe, stay inside, know your rights if you're gonna go out, and please wash your hands. And don't forget to enjoy this cat video. Fluffily boy. Are you a window boy? What is it? What is it? It's okay. We've made the appointment to get your fleas done and your vaccine so you can go out again. You're gonna go on walkies. Are you excited for walkies? You can come out here and reclaim your territory from Orange Boy. Also, yes, you can chase birds, but I don't think you'll catch them. Alright, I'm gonna go continue working out. You have fun sitting here wondering why there isn't food in your dish.